Have you ever given everything to someone you love, your time, your energy, your youth, and believed that one day they would remember, not because you asked them to, but because love should be remembered? This is a story about a woman who never asked for anything, not money, not gifts, not attention. She only wanted one thing: to be part of their lives until the end. Her name was Margaret. She lived in a small house at the end of a quiet street, the kind of street where people don't rush, where mornings begin slowly and evenings arrive gently every day. Margaret woke up early, not because she had to, but because she always had. Her body still followed the same rhythm from years ago, years when the house was full, full of voices, full of footsteps, full of life. Now, the house was quiet, but she still woke up at the same time, 5:30 in the morning, just like before. She would sit up slowly, her knees a little stiff, her hands a little slower. Then she would walk to the kitchen, carefully, gently, like she didn't want to wake anyone. Even though there was no one left to wake, she would make tea, always the same cup, always the same way. Hot water, one tea bag, a little sugar. She would sit by the window and watch the sky change from dark to soft blue, from silence to the distant sound of the world waking up, cars passing, birds singing, neighbors opening their doors, life continuing. She would take a small sip and whisper softly. Another day, Margaret had 3 children, 2 sons, and 1 daughter. She remembered their names like she remembered her own breath: David, Michael, Anna. There was a time when those names filled the house. Mom, Mom, where are my shoes? Mom, I'm hungry. Laughter, crying, running feet, mess everywhere. But to Margaret, it was never noise. It was life. She used to wake up even earlier back then, before the sun, before everyone else, to prepare breakfast, eggs, toast, milk, sometimes pancakes. On special days, she made sure everything was ready, so her children would never start the day feeling empty. She packed their lunches, checked their bags, walked them to school, holding their small hands like they might disappear if she let go. When they were sick, she stayed awake all night, touching their forehead, listening to their breathing, praying quietly that they would be okay. When they cried, she held them close, even when she was tired, even when she had no strength left, because that's what mothers do. They give, even when they have nothing left to give. Her husband, Thomas, worked long hours. He was not a bad man, just distant, quiet, always busy. Margaret never complained. She believed that her role was to hold everything together, to keep the home warm, to keep the family close. And for many years, she did. The children grew, slowly, quietly, like time always does. One day, they didn't need help getting dressed anymore. Another day, they didn't ask for bedtime stories. Then, they stopped holding her hand. And one day, they walked out of the house without looking back. It didn't happen suddenly. It never does. It happened, little by little. David left first, for university. Margaret packed his bags carefully, folding each shirt like she was folding a part of her heart. "Call me when you arrive," she said. He smiled. "I will, Mom." And he did. At first, then less. Then, not as much. Michael left next, for a job in another city. "I'll visit," he promised, and he meant it, at that moment. But life became busy. Anna stayed the longest. She was the youngest, the closest to Margaret. They talked often, cooked together, shared small moments, quiet moments. But even Anna had her own life to live. One day, she stood at the door with a suitcase. I'll come back soon, she said. Margaret smiled. Of course she did. Take care of yourself. Anna hugged her tightly, then left, and the house became quiet. At first, Margaret thought it was temporary. They're just busy, she told herself. They'll come back. And sometimes they did, on holidays, on birthdays, on special occasions. The house would fill again, with voices, with laughter, but it was different. Everything was shorter, quieter, less connected. They checked their phones more, talked less, left earlier, stayed just enough. Margaret never said anything. She didn't want to be a burden, didn't want to make them feel guilty. So she smiled, always smiled, even when her heart felt empty. Years passed, slowly, silently. Her husband passed away, one quiet night, no warning, no time to prepare. The house felt even bigger after that, not physically, but emotionally. The silence became deeper. Her children came for the funeral. They stayed for a few days, then left again, back to their lives, back to their world. Margaret stood at the door, watching them go, just like before. But this time, something felt different. She realized they were not coming back. Not really. Not in the way she had hoped. Days became longer, evenings became heavier, nights, the hardest of all. Sometimes, she would sit in the living room, looking at old photos, smiling at memories, talking to them, as if they were still there. Do you remember this day? You love this cake. You used to laugh so much. Her voice soft, gentle, alone. The phone rang, sometimes, short calls. Hi, Mom, just checking in. I'm busy, but I'll visit soon. Take care, okay? And Margaret would say, I'm fine. Always that sentence, I'm fine. Even when she wasn't, because she didn't want to worry them, didn't want to interrupt their lives, didn't want to be a problem. One evening, she sat by the window again, the same place, the same cup of tea. But this time, her hands trembled slightly. She looked outside, at the empty street, at the fading light, and she whispered, I gave them everything. Then she paused, her eyes filled with quiet tears. But I don't know if they remember. The room stayed silent. No answer came, only the sound of time passing, slowly, gently, without waiting for anyone. And Margaret sat there, holding her cup of tea, in a house that once held everything. Loneliness does not arrive loudly. It does not knock on the door. It does not ask for permission. It simply stays. At first, Margaret didn't notice it clearly. It was just quiet, just a slower day, a longer evening, a deeper silence. Something she told herself she could get used to. And for a while, she tried. She created small routines, simple habits, things to fill the time. In the morning, she watered the plants, each one, carefully, as if they could feel her attention, as if they needed her. The way her children once did, she spoke to them sometimes, softly. You're growing well. You need a little more light. Her voice, gentle, kind, unanswered. In the afternoon, she cleaned the house, even when it was already clean. She wiped the same table, folded the same towels, moved objects, just to feel like something was happening, because doing nothing felt heavier. Evenings were the most difficult. That was the time when the house used to feel alive, when voices filled the air, when dinner meant conversation. Now, dinner was quiet, just one plate, one chair, one person. Margaret still cooked. Not large meals anymore, just something small. Soup, rice, vegetables. Sometimes she made too much, out of habit, then stood there, looking at the extra food, not knowing what to do with it. So she saved it, put it in the fridge, as if someone might come later and say, "Mom, I'm hungry." But no one came. The nights grew longer, and the silence louder. Margaret started leaving the television on, not to watch, just to hear voices, human voices, even if they weren't speaking to her. Sometimes she fell asleep on the chair, the light still on, the sound still playing, just to avoid that deep, heavy quiet. One day, she found an old box, hidden in the closet. Inside were letters, photos, small drawings from years ago. She sat down slowly and opened them one by one. A drawing from Anna, a small house, a stick figure family, and a big heart in the middle. "Mom, I love you," it said. Margaret smiled, her fingers gently touching the paper, as if it were something fragile, something alive. Another letter from David, written during his first year away. "Mom, I miss your cooking. I miss home." Margaret closed her eyes for a moment because she remembered that time when he still missed her, when home was still something he needed. Then another, from Michael. Short, simple. "Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." She laughed softly, because even then, he was trying to be strong. She held the letters close, against her chest, and for a moment, the house didn't feel empty. It felt full again, but only for a moment, because memories do not stay. They visit, then leave. And when they leave, the silence feels even deeper. Margaret placed the letters back in the box, carefully, respectfully, like she was returning something. That did not belong to the present, that evening. She decided to call her children. She hesitated at first, looking at the phone, holding it, then putting it down, then picking it up again. She didn't want to disturb them, didn't want to seem needy, didn't want to be that kind of mother. But something inside her needed to hear their voices. So she called David first. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times, then voicemail. "Hi, this is David. I can't answer right now." Margaret hung up slowly. "It's okay," she whispered. "He's busy." She tried Michael next. This time, he answered. "Hi, Mom," he said quickly. There was noise in the background, voices, a movement, life. "Hi, Michael," she said, her voice soft, careful. "How are you?" "I'm good, Mom, just at work. Kinda busy." Margaret nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "I understand." There was a small pause. Then she asked, "Are you eating well?" A question she had asked 100 times before. Michael laughed lightly. "Yes, Mom, I'm fine." Another pause. Short, uncomfortable. "Okay, I just wanted to hear your voice," she said, softly, quickly, before she could change her mind. "Yeah, I'll call you later, okay?" "Of course," she said. "Take care." "You too." And the call ended. Margaret looked at the phone, still in her hand. The silence returned. Immediately. He will call later, she told herself. But deep down, she knew. Later sometimes never comes. Still, she waited. She didn't call Anna that night. She wanted to save something, a voice. For tomorrow, the next day, she woke up the same way, same time, same routine. But something felt heavier. She made her tea, sat by the window, watched the sky. But her thoughts were somewhere else. She thought about her children, their lives, their worlds, their distance. She asked herself a question. for the first time, not as a mother, but as a person. When did I become unnecessary? The question stayed with her all day. She didn't find an answer, only more silence. That afternoon, she walked outside, slowly, carefully, down the quiet street. The air was cool, the world still moving. She saw neighbors, people talking, laughing, living. She smiled politely, nodded, but didn't stop because she didn't know what to say or how to start. She had spent her whole life talking to her family, listening to her children, caring for others, but now, without them, she felt out of place, like a story without a listener. She walked a little further, then stopped, because her body felt tired, but not just her body, her heart too. She sat on a bench and looked around. For a moment, she wondered what her life looked like from the outside. An old woman sitting alone in the afternoon, watching the world pass by. No one would know the years she gave, the love she carried, the sacrifices she made, because those things do not show on the surface, and they stay hidden. Inside, Margaret closed her eyes and took a slow breath. I did my best, she whispered, not to anyone, just to herself. I really did. The wind moved gently. The trees made a soft sound, but there was no answer. Still, she sat there for a long time, because sometimes being outside feels less lonely than being inside an empty home. And when the sun began to set, Margaret stood up slowly and walked back to the house that was still waiting for her. Silent, patient, unchanged. Time has a quiet way of moving forward. It does not ask if you are ready. It does not slow down, just because your heart feels heavy. For Margaret, days began to blend together. Morning, afternoon, evening, the same rhythm, the same silence, the same empty spaces, waiting to be filled, but nothing came. She still followed her routines, still made her tea, still sat by the window, still watched the sky change. But now, even those small comforts felt thinner, less real, like something was slowly fading inside her. One morning, Margaret forgot something. It was a small thing, so small that most people wouldn't notice. She put the kettle on, turned around, and then stopped. Her hands rested on the table, her eyes unfocused. What was I doing? She whispered. The question felt strange, unfamiliar. She looked around the kitchen, at the cup, at the tea bag, at the quiet room. Then suddenly, she remembered. The tea, she said softly, and smiled a little. But the smile didn't last, because something else followed. A quiet fear, not loud, not sharp, just present, like a shadow she couldn't ignore. That day, she became more aware of everything, her steps, her movements, her thoughts. She moved slower, more carefully, as if something inside her was fragile, because maybe it was. In the afternoon, she opened the photo album again, the same one, with the same pictures. But this time, she looked at them differently. She studied each face, each moment, each memory, as if she was trying to hold on to them. There was a picture of David, graduation day. He was smiling, proud, standing tall. Margaret remembered that day clearly, the way she stood in the crowd, clapping, her eyes full of tears, not sadness, but pride. You did it, she had said, and he had hugged her tightly. She touched the photo gently, as if she could feel that hug again. Then, another picture. Michael, at the dinner table, laughing, his head slightly tilted back. That was always his way. When he laughed freely, without holding back, Margaret smiled, because she remembered the sound. Loud, warm, alive. Then, Anna, standing in the kitchen, holding a spoon, trying to cook for the first time, making a mess, laughing at herself. "You'll learn," Margaret had said, and Anna had replied, "Only if you teach me." And she did, patiently, lovingly. Margaret closed the album slowly because something inside her was beginning to hurt, not sharply, but deeply, like a memory that stayed too long. And that evening, the phone rang. Margaret turned quickly, almost too quickly, her heart suddenly awake. She picked it up with both hands. "Hello? Hi, Mom." It was Anna. Margaret's face softened. Anna, her voice gentle, careful, as always. "How are you?" Anna asked. "I'm fine," Margaret replied. The familiar sentence, the safe answer. There was a pause. Then Anna said, "Sorry I haven't called much. Things have been busy." Margaret nodded. "I understand." And she did. Or at least, she told herself she did. "I was thinking." Anna continued, "Maybe you should come stay with me for a while." Margaret froze slightly, not in fear, but in surprise. "Stay with you?" "Yes, just for a few weeks. It might be nice." Nice. Such a simple word, but it carried so many possibilities. Margaret's heart moved slightly, a small hope, a quiet light. "That would be lovely," she said, softly, carefully, as if the moment might break. "Great," Anna said quickly. "I'll check my schedule and let you know, okay?" "Of course." "I have to go now. Talk soon." "Yes, talk soon." And the call ended. Margaret stood there, still holding the phone. But something inside her had changed. The house didn't feel as heavy. Not in that moment. She walked to the window, looked outside, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled, not out of habit, but because she felt something real, hope. The next few days felt different. She moved with more energy, more purpose. She cleaned the house again. But this time, it wasn't to fill the silence. It was to prepare, to get ready. She opened closets, looked at her clothes, chose what she might take. Simple things, comfortable things, familiar things. She imagined herself in Anna's home, hearing voices again, sharing meals, sitting together. The thought made her feel warm. Each day, she waited for the call, but the phone stayed silent. "It's okay," she said. "She's busy." Days passed, then a week. Margaret still waited, still believed, because hope is a quiet thing. It doesn't leave easily. One afternoon, she decided to call Anna just to ask, just to hear her voice again. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, "Hi, this is Anna. I can't answer right now." Margaret didn't hang up immediately. She listened until the message ended, then slowly. She placed the phone down. The house felt different again. Not loud, not sharp, just empty. That evening, she didn't turn on the television. She didn't make extra food. She didn't open the photo album. She just sat in the quiet because something inside her was beginning to understand. Not everything we hope for comes back. Not every promise is kept, and not every love stays close. Margaret looked around the room, at the walls, at the chairs, at the life she had built, and for the first time, she asked herself, not as a mother, but as a person, "What do I have now?" The question stayed in the air, unanswered. But this time, she didn't look away, because somewhere deep inside, a new feeling was beginning. Not hope, not sadness, but something quieter, awareness. And maybe that was the beginning of something she had never learned before: how to live for herself, learning to live for yourself is not something everyone knows how to do, especially when you have spent your whole life living for others. Margaret did not suddenly change. There was no moment of realization, no dramatic decision, no clear beginning, just a quiet shift, so small, it was almost invisible. The day after she called Anna and received no answer, Margaret woke up, just like always, 5:30 in the morning, the same light, the same silence, the same empty house. But something inside her was different. She did not rush to the kitchen. She did not prepare tea immediately. She just sat on the edge of the bed, her hands resting on her lap, her eyes looking at nothing. For a long moment, she didn't move, because for the first time, she asked herself, "What do I want to do today?" It was a simple question, but it felt unfamiliar. All her life, her days were planned around someone else. Breakfast for the children, lunch for the family, dinner for everyone, cleaning, helping, waiting. Everything had a reason, a purpose, a person. But now, there was no one waiting, and she didn't know what to choose. After a while, she stood up slowly, walked to the kitchen, and made her tea. The same cup, the same routine. But this time, she noticed something. She was doing it for herself, not for anyone else. She sat by the window again, held the warm cup in her hands, and watched the sky change. But instead of thinking about her children, she stayed in the moment, the light, the air, the quiet. It felt strange, but not uncomfortable, just new. That morning, Margaret did something different. She didn't clean the house. She didn't open the photo album. She didn't wait for the phone. She put on her shoes, slowly, carefully, and stepped outside. The street looked the same, quiet, still, familiar. But somehow, it felt different because she was not walking to pass time. She was walking because she chose to. Each step, slow, gentle, intentional. She noticed things she had not noticed before. The way the sunlight touched the trees, the sound of birds, not far away, the movement of leaves. In the soft wind, life was still happening, even without her children, even without her past. Margaret walked a little further than usual, then stopped, at the same bench, the one where she had sat before, feeling tired, feeling invisible, but this time, she sat down, with a different feeling. Not sadness, not loneliness, just presence. She looked around, at people passing by, at small moments happening everywhere. A young mother, holding her child's hand, a man talking on the phone, a couple walking together, slowly, quietly. Margaret watched them, without comparison, without pain, just watching. Because for the first time, she understood something. Life does not stop. It moves, with or without us. And maybe that was not something to fear. Maybe it was something to accept. The next few days, Margaret continued her walks. Not every day, not always far, but often enough to feel something change inside her. She began to greet people, small smiles, soft nods, simple words. Good morning. Nice weather today. Nothing deep, nothing long, but something human. And sometimes people responded. A smile, a nod, a few words back. It was small, but it mattered because connection does not always come from family. Sometimes it comes from strangers. One afternoon, Margaret stopped at a small store. She didn't need anything, but she went in anyway. The air inside was warm, comforting, different from her quiet house. The woman at the counter smiled, "Hello," she said. Margaret hesitated for a moment, then smiled back. "Hello." She walked slowly through the aisles, looking at things, simple things, bread, tea, fruit. She picked up a small cake, looked at it, then placed it in her basket. At the counter, the woman spoke again. "Buying something nice today?" Margaret looked at the cake, then said softly, "Yes, for myself." The words felt unusual, but also right. That evening, she placed the cake on the table, cut a small piece, and sat down. No special occasion, no celebration, just a quiet moment. She took a bite, slowly, carefully, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to enjoy something without guilt, without reason, without waiting for someone else, just for herself. Days turned into weeks. The house was still quiet. The phone still didn't ring often. Her children still lived far away. Nothing outside had changed, but inside, something had. Margaret no longer waited the same way. She still loved her children, still thought about them, still hoped to hear their voices. But she was no longer holding her life in their absence. She was beginning to hold it herself. One evening, she sat by the window again, the same place, the same cup of tea, but her hands were steady, her eyes clear. She looked outside at the fading light, and instead of whispering, "I gave them everything," she said something different. "I gave them love." Then she paused and added, "And now I can give some to myself." The room remained quiet, but this time, the silence did not feel empty. It felt peaceful, because sometimes the greatest loss teaches us something unexpected, not how to hold on, but how to let go, not how to wait, but how to live. And Margaret was finally beginning to understand what that meant. There is a quiet kind of strength that does not appear in noise. It does not need attention. It does not ask to be seen. It simply exists deep inside a person who has learned how to continue. Margaret did not become a different person. She was still gentle, still quiet, still caring. But now, there was something new in her life. Not excitement, not sudden happiness, but something steadier, something calm, a quiet acceptance. The days continued, morning, afternoon, evening, but they no longer felt empty. They felt complete, not full of people, but full of awareness. Margaret still woke up early, still made her tea, still sat by the window, but now she noticed more. The warmth of the cup, the softness of the light, the rhythm of her breath. She was no longer waiting for something to happen. She was living inside each moment. One morning, the phone rang. Margaret looked at it, not with urgency, not with hope, just calmly. She walked over, picked it up. "Hello?" "Hi, Mom." It was David. His voice sounded different, not rushed, not distracted, just quieter. "Hi, David," she said. "How are you?" "I'm okay," he replied. Then there was a pause, a real pause, not empty, but thoughtful. "I've been thinking about you," he said. Margaret didn't respond immediately. She simply listened. "I know I haven't called much," he continued, "and I'm sorry." The word hung in the air. Margaret closed her eyes gently, not in pain, but in understanding. "It's okay," she said softly. "No, it's not," David replied. "I just got busy. Life, work, everything." Margaret nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "I understand," she said again. But this time, her voice carried something different. Not longing, not quiet sadness, but calm acceptance. David hesitated, then asked, Are you okay? Mom? A question he had not asked in a long time. Margaret looked around the room, at the walls, at the window, at the life she now lived. Then she answered, "Yes, I am." And for the first time, it was completely true. David was silent for a moment. Then he said, "That makes me feel better." Margaret smiled slightly. "I'm glad." Another pause. Then he added, "I'll try to visit soon." Margaret didn't hold on to the sentence, didn't build hope around it. She simply said, "You're always welcome," and meant it, not as expectation, but as an open door. After the call ended, Margaret placed the phone down gently. She did not sit and wait. She did not replay the conversation. She did not wonder when he would come. She simply returned to her tea because her life was no longer on pause. That afternoon, she went for a walk again, the same street, the same trees, but each step felt lighter. She passed the small store. The woman at the counter waved. Margaret waved back. This time, she went inside without hesitation. "Hello again," the woman said. Margaret smiled. "Hello." "You seem happier," the woman added. Margaret paused for a moment, then nodded. "I think I am," the woman smiled warmly. "That's good to hear." Margaret looked around the store, then picked up something simple, a small loaf of bread. At the counter, the woman asked, "Anything special today?" Margaret thought for a moment, then replied, "Just another day." But this time, her voice carried meaning, because just another day was no longer something empty. It was something enough. When she returned home, the house greeted her in the same quiet way, but it no longer felt like a place of loss. It felt like a place of rest, a place that held her story, her memories, her present. Margaret placed the bread on the table, made her tea again, and sat down. She looked around, not searching, not waiting, just seeing. The chair where her husband once sat, the corner where her children used to play, the window where she had spent so many mornings. Everything was still there, but now it did not bring only sadness. It brought understanding, because those years were not wasted. They were not forgotten. They existed inside her, not as something lost, but as something lived. That evening, she opened the photo album again, but this time, she did not feel pain. She looked at each picture, each moment, each memory, and instead of thinking, "They are gone," she thought, "They were here," and that made all the difference. She closed the album gently, placed it back in its place, then sat by the window as the sun slowly disappeared. The sky turned soft, then darker, then quiet. Margaret took a deep breath, and for the first time, she felt something complete, not because her children had returned, not because life had changed, but because she had. She had learned something that no one had ever taught her: how to live without waiting, how to love without expecting, so how to be without needing to be needed. And in that quiet understanding, she found peace, a soft peace, a lasting peace, the kind that does not depend on anyone else. Before she went to bed, the phone lit up again, a message from Anna. "Mom, I'm sorry I didn't call back. Things got busy. I miss you." Margaret read the message slowly. Then she typed a reply, carefully, gently. "I miss you too. Take care of yourself." She paused, then added, "I'm doing well." And she was. She placed the phone down, turned off the light, and lay in bed. The house was quiet. The night was still. But Margaret was not alone because she had herself, and sometimes, after a lifetime of giving everything away, that is the most important thing to finally have. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, take a moment. Think about your own life. Is there someone who has given everything for you? Have you called them recently? Have you said, thank you? And if you are like Margaret, learning to live again, remember this: it is never too late to care for yourself. If you want to continue improving your English through slow, meaningful stories like this, stay with us and let each story guide you gently forward.